Hello there, lovely people. This is me, Ashley, here, sending my love to you from whatever reality I'm in today to whatever reality you happen to find yourself in. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the fact that it's become quite obvious, really, that it doesn't matter what reality we visit, there are affected people across every single reality that we pass through. And that also, it does tie into the fact that we don't share the same reality at the same time. But the reason why I was thinking about this quite a lot this morning as I was doing my cleaning, and the reason why I'm saying this is because I remember being on a Mandela group on Facebook quite some time ago, and somebody was exclaiming how strange it was to see Scotland attached. Now, at the time, it was like, eh? What do you mean Scotland attached? Well, now I understand, because I'm now in the reality that that person was in, where her forever reality always had the island on the top of Scotland, where for me, that's a massive change. In fact, it's a disturbing change for me. And yeah, the reality that I'm in at the moment, I've lost the top of Scotland and it's now become an island on its own. And for that person, and that was, right at the beginning when I first realised I was Mandela affected, that she said how strange it was to see the top of Scotland attached. So that really does prove that no matter what reality we're moving into, there are people within that reality that are Mandela affected. And you see, this is what, we're not moving into realities where nobody's affected. You know, we're talking about being into different realities where your forever reality isn't the same as my forever reality, but it doesn't mean that we aren't equally Mandela affected. And that's something that's only just struck me, really. Knowing that we're not in the same reality at the same time is one thing, but something as big as the top of Scotland being off was somebody else's always reality, which means that there will be people that are Mandela affected where Australia has always looked like it does now. And I've never really thought about that in geographical terms, but we're seeing it quite clearly now. And it does mean that people that are living, at the Panama Canal, that's now north-south, when it used to be east-west, that's their forever reality, but they are Mandela affected. And that's, I've really only just thought of that. And that's something that I find adds a little extra to the puzzle, because I think we assume that we're like moving through realities and that people will wake up to it in, I'm not explaining myself very well, but what I really mean is that when we're moving into realities, we assume it's the affected moving into the realities, and that, the geographical changes are normal and some people's forever reality, even though to most of it we're like horrified by that change. But it doesn't lessen the fact that they're Mandela affected nonetheless. And yeah, we have to. And I also wonder about the fact that how many people out there are actually affected but don't realise it, because I know I didn't realise it for an awful long time before eventually I prayed and I found Brian Staveley, and that changed my life forever. But before that, I was able to shrug off things, even physical things on the ground. I made a video where I thought that I'd seen my first physical changes on the ground, and that was the plaques in my hometown. But actually that's not true, because I'd already seen the changes in a pub, the pub that is like the death warrant of King Charles I was signed in that pub. I realised before that, I saw before that the steps used to be tall and thin, 3 tall thin steps, and they got smaller, well, they got wider and shallower. And I saw that. And I was able to shrug it off. I just, so I understand that there are people, this is what makes it confusing as well, because if there are people that has always been their reality, maybe they're not, you can't point those things out as a Mandela effect to those people if they aren't already awake, if they haven't already come to the Mandela effect, because some things in their reality in our reality that's changed is completely normal for them. So coming to our, it makes it even more confusing, really, because I know that there are people out there now in every reality that see changes, but there are also people out there in every reality that see changes but don't know what they are yet, just like I did. If I was able to shrug off changes to a building before I knew about the Mandela effect, never mind, I mean, I was like Looney Tunes, when did it change to tunes? All kinds of things went on like that for me, but I've only just realised that I actually saw that change on the ground before I knew I was Mandela affected. So I know that there are lots of people out there that must be going through the same thing that I went through. That seeing lots of changes and somehow being able to pretend, well, not pretend they're not there. It wasn't pretend they're not there. You see, it's even more complicated than that. It wasn't like I pretended that I couldn't see it. It's just that I thought there were changes, and with the building, it confused me massively. But I had nothing to tag it to. I had nothing to explain it. So I suppose I personally had, before I found out what it all was, you kind of block it out. It's a weird thing. I can't put it into words. How on earth could I see that and not be affected by it? Whereas now every change I see in every building. But then obviously there was those things in the ground I really couldn't ignore. Maybe that's why I was shown them. Maybe that's why I was put into that specific reality. But I already knew about the Mandela effect then. That's why I spoke about it. That happened to me shortly after I came to the Mandela effect community. So in every reality, there are people Mandela affected, whether they know it or not. And that ties in with what a lot of people say. They think that everybody's affected. Now, obviously, everybody has to be affected because it's every dimension, every reality we're going into. There are people in that reality that are affected. And obviously, it's the whole of mankind, so whatever mankind is. So it has to affect everybody. And at some point in the future, everybody will see that. It is. It's just that the problem is that we're moving into realities where that reality is a forever reality to people. So we all know that. We've been there now. We know that, somebody says that's a change and somebody else says, no, that's not for me. That's my forever reality. That's how we worked out that we weren't living in the same reality at the same time. But the fact that there are newbies out there from all realities that don't realise it yet. And it's difficult because I can't say, the top came off Scotland, because they'll say, oh no, that's my forever reality. And if they've only just come to the Mandela effect, they're not going to understand the nuances of we don't share the same reality at the same time, even though we do share massive amounts of the big changes we all seem to share. But if you're just coming into the Mandela effect, how on earth are you going to understand that? It's so deep. It's so very confusing and so very deep. And it's taken, I've only known about the Mandela effect for, I think probably from listening to Brian, a very short space after Brian knew, maybe 6 months after he started bringing out his own videos about it. And I don't think an awful lot of people in 2015 all raced to the internet and all found and discovered it was called the Mandela effect. I think most people seem to have found it over time. But there are people out there whose geographical changes are normal, forever. They're forever reality. So it's like, I know that there must be millions and millions of people across the realities that see changes but don't know what it is, that don't know about the Mandela effect, they've never heard of it. Millions must be exactly like I was, until they get that absolute smack in the face, like the skull with the skull without the sockets. That really freaked me out. I think that was the first one where I actually went, no, that's not right. That is not right. How can the skull have sockets? Excuse me. And until we get that moment, and not everybody is into those sort of things, so it's just so confusing. But it's the only way we can understand it. I mean, we're all trying to understand it. I mean, people say don't try and understand it, but how can we not? God gave us an inquiring brain. We have to work this out. I'm sure that that's part of it. That's why we're being bombarded with numbers and things. You know what I mean? Somebody's trying to tell us something. And we seem to have seen it from the beginning, or whatever the beginning is, because my first changes were in the 80s. So, you know, and I know people that their first changes were in the 40s. So this is, I think it's a supernatural fluid thing that we have been doing throughout, I'd say time, but it's not even that. It's beyond everything, because this is supernatural. It's about the Creator, quite clearly. I'm not saying that quantum computers and CERN don't have anything to do with it, because I think the evil powers are using that. But I do think that this particular evolving into another world, because clearly we haven't got there yet. It hasn't stopped. It's still changing, and there are people from each new reality that we move into. There are people there that's their forever reality anyway, even though we're seeing massive geographical changes. So there's lots of that, and that makes it, because I've thought about how to, especially after the Mandela Effect conference, that debacle, of trying to get out the message out there to people that must be absolutely freaked out by changes, but don't know what to put, you know, what to do about it, or in fact, like I was, deaf, dumb and blind to it, seeing it, noticing it, and yet somehow able to just carry on. Crazy thing, this Mandela Effect. But it's basically by talking to each other that the pieces come together, and I think that that's part of it. I think that we are supposed to see, and that we are supposed to inquire, because God gave us an inquiring mind, and I don't think he gave us that for sweet bugger all. So there's my thoughts on this Sunday morning, people. Thank you as ever for your love, your support, your kindness. I mean, especially at the moment, people are really trying to help me right now to get my to be able to go live more often, because I don't have a bank account. But having said that, for me it's the community that gets me through. And in the next few weeks, I'm not going to be able to be with you as often, because I'll be with my family, and I'm kind of dreading that. In as much as I won't be able to connect with you as much as I want to, I'm going to try as much as I can when I get the chance. But let's see how it goes. So, until the next time, lovely people, I loved you all.